The live stream to Grandpa Edward began with a view of my empty hands before it shifted to my bedroom door. Sweet 16 reveal, coming soon. I murmured into my phone, struggling to contain my thrill. Ready for this, Grandpa? His chuckle, a bit staticky through my earbuds, responded. As ready as can be, sweetheart. I pushed the door open, already picturing where I'd set up the new art supplies he'd promised. But the words caught in my throat. Where my easel should have been, a spotless white crib stood bathed in the afternoon sun. My posters, my paintings, my entire teenage life had been wiped away. Pale yellow ducks pranced across freshly painted walls. Mom. My voice was weaker than intended. Dad. Their voices drifted up from downstairs, likely from Dad's study. My feet felt like lead as I went down, still broadcasting. The study door was slightly ajar, letting snippets of their conversation reach me. Lena will understand eventually. Eleanor, maybe we should have. Should have waited until she got home from school, given her time to have one of her dramatic outbursts. I pushed the door wide open. Mom stood by the window in her sharp blazer, while Dad was slumped in his leather chair, his gaze avoiding mine. What happened to my room? I asked, though I already knew the nursery theme, the timing. It had to be for Sophia's baby. Mom's lips tightened into that familiar line of disapproval. Good. We need to discuss some changes. Changes. The word tasted bitter. You mean how you turned my bedroom into a nursery without even telling me? Your sister needs that space more than you do right now. Mom stated, as if explaining something obvious to a child. We've arranged for you to stay with Aunt Clara. Dad mumbled, shifting in his chair. It's just temporary, honey, until we figure something out. Figure something out? I gripped my phone tighter, suddenly grateful for Grandpa's silent presence on the other end. I live here. This is my home. Was your home? Mom corrected sharply. Honestly, Lena, you're 16 now. It's time to stop being so self-absorbed. Your sister is starting a family. She needs our support. The room swam slightly. And what about what I need? What you need. Mom's voice turned icy. Is to grow up and stop making everything about yourself. Clara's expecting you tonight. I've already packed your essentials. I looked at Dad, but he just stared at his hands, shoulders hunched as if trying to disappear into his chair. Sweet 16. Happy birthday to me, I guess? I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. Thanks for the heads up. Don't be dramatic, Lena. Mom sighed. Your aunt's place is perfectly nice, and it's closer to your school. This is hardly the tragedy you're making it out to be. I backed toward the door, my hand finding the doorknob. You're right, Mom, it's not a tragedy. It's just really clear where I stand with you both. As I turned to leave, I saw Dad flinch, a slight tremor in his hand, as he reached for his coffee cup. Mom's reflection in the window showed a flicker across her face. Not guilt, exactly, but something akin to unease. I ended the live stream as I went upstairs, but not before whispering, "Did you get all that, Grandpa?" His response was instant and grim. Every word, sweetheart, every single word. Standing in what used to be my room, I ran my fingers along the crib's smooth white rail. The nursery was beautiful, truly perfect for the golden child's perfect baby. But as I traced one of those cheerful yellow ducks, I made a silent promise. This was not going to be the end of my story, not by a long shot. Clara's spare room smelled faintly of lavender and fresh paint. She'd stayed up late helping me hang fairy lights across the ceiling, turning the plain walls into something almost magical. But at 3 a.m., even magic couldn't quiet my racing thoughts. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. Mom says you're being difficult about the nursery. Can't you think of someone else for once? I switched off my phone and padded downstairs, drawn by the sound of clinking dishes. Clara stood at the kitchen counter, her dark hair tousled from sleep, stirring something in a pot. Couldn't sleep either. She asked without turning around. How did you know it was me? Because you walk exactly like your mother used to. before she started wearing those ridiculous heels everywhere. She poured hot chocolate into 2 mugs, adding a generous handful of mini marshmallows to mine. Want to talk about it? I wrapped my hands around the warm mug. Did you know about their plans for my room? No. Her voice held a sharp edge I hadn't heard before. Eleanor called me yesterday morning, informed me you'd be staying here, as if I were some kind of hotel service. You could have said no. And leave you where? With them. She sat opposite me, her eyes sharp in the dim kitchen light. Do you remember your 10th birthday? I stared into my hot chocolate. The art show? The one you spent weeks preparing for, those paintings? Your teacher even called to say how talented you were. She paused, stirring her drink. Your mother scheduled a client dinner for the same evening. Your father promised he'd come see your work afterwards, but he fell asleep in his study instead. The memory still stung. Mom said I shouldn't have expected them to rearrange their lives for a school art show. You stopped painting after that. Yeah, well, what was the point? The marshmallows in my cocoa had melted into a sweet, sticky swirl. Mom always said art wouldn't pay the bills. Clara's phone chimed, her expression clouding over as she glanced at it. Speaking of your mother, what now? She wants me to send you home this weekend for a family dinner. Sophia is officially announcing her pregnancy. She looked up at me. You don't have to go. Yes, I do. I traced the rim of my mug. If I don't, they'll say I'm being selfish again, making everything about me, just like they made my birthday about Sophia. Clara's voice was gentle, but her words struck home. My phone buzzed again upstairs, probably another text from Sophia. I thought about my sister's seemingly perfect life. Her successful husband, her growing family, our parents' constant approval. But I'd also seen the cracks in her smile at family gatherings, the way her hands trembled when Mom criticized her weight or career choices. You know what's funny? I said, breaking the silence. When I was little, I used to think Sophia hung the moon. She'd sneak into my room after Mom and Dad's parties, tell me stories about her college adventures. Then she met Richard, and suddenly it was like she became Mom's mini-me. Clara reached across the table, squeezing my hand. People change, sweetheart. Sometimes not for the better. Yeah. I squeezed back, then stood up. I should try to sleep. Big family dinner to prepare for, right? Lena. Clara called as I reached the stairs. Whatever you're planning. And don't tell me you're not planning something. Just remember that revenge might feel good for a moment. But it won't fix what's broken. I paused, thinking about the live stream Grandpa had witnessed, Dad's averted gaze, all the birthdays and art shows and moments that had slipped away. Maybe not, I said quietly, but pretending everything's fine isn't good either. Grandpa Edward's Mercedes rolled into Aunt Clara's driveway exactly 3 days after the birthday incident. I watched from the window as he emerged, his usual sharp suit replaced by casual slacks and a sweater. He looked older, somehow tired in a way I'd never seen before. You didn't have to come, I said when he stepped inside, though my tight hug probably betrayed how relieved I was to see him. Actually, I did, he replied, placing a leather briefcase on Clara's coffee table, especially after what I witnessed on that live stream. Clara appeared with coffee, her expression guarded. Eleanor called this morning. She's not happy about you being here. Eleanor hasn't been happy about anything since she married that spineless. He caught himself, glancing at me. Sorry, sweetheart, but we need to discuss something important. He pulled several documents from his briefcase. I recognized the Whitman Industries letterhead. Your mother's been pressuring me to sign over control of the company, he said, spreading the papers across the table. She claims it's about succession planning, but the timing is interesting, isn't it? The same week they kick you out. I picked up one of the documents, scanning the legal jargon I barely understood. The same week they assume I won't find out about their treatment of you. His voice hardened. They forgot about our weekly video calls, didn't they? Clara leaned forward. What are you planning? Before he could answer, my phone buzzed. Mom's face flashed on the screen. I showed it to them, and Grandpa nodded. Put it on speaker. Lena, Mom's voice filled the room. Your father and I expect you at dinner tonight? No excuses? I'm studying. Isn't going to work. Your sister's announcement dinner is important to this family, and since you're still part of this family, despite your recent attitude, you will attend. I saw Grandpa's slight nod. Fine, I'll be there. And wear something appropriate, not those dreadful ripped jeans. The line went dead. Still part of the family. I echoed, a bitter laugh escaping me. Funny how that works when they need something. Grandpa tapped the papers. They need more than you know. The company's facing some challenges. Nothing serious yet, but enough to make your mother nervous about her position. And Sophia's baby. That's their backup plan. The perfect family image, Clara murmured. The successful daughter, the precious grandchild, the disposable teenager, I added. Grandpa's expression darkened. You were never disposable, Lena. And it's time your parents remembered that. He pulled out another document. This is my current will. I'm making some changes. Dad, Clara warned, don't do anything rash. Rash would be letting them continue this behavior. He turned to me. I'll be attending tonight's dinner too. Uninvited. My stomach twisted. They'll blame me. Let them. He squeezed my hand. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do for people we love is to stop enabling their worst behavior. I thought about Mom's controlling voice, Dad's constant silence, Sophia's perfect life built on perfectly crafted lies. What if it makes everything worse? Worse than being erased from your own home? Clara asked softly. Worse than being treated like an inconvenience by the people who should love you most? Grandpa gathered his papers. The question isn't whether this will make things worse, sweetheart. The question is whether you're ready to show them who you really are. Someone who won't be pushed aside or forgotten. I picked up my phone, looking at Mom's missed call notification. I guess we'll find out at dinner. Yes, he said, and for a moment I saw a flash of the shrewd businessman who'd built an empire. I suppose we will. I arrived early for Sophia's announcement dinner, slipping in through the kitchen door like I used to when I was late for curfew. Voices drifted from Dad's study. Mom's sharp tone, Dad's quieter murmur, and Sophia's familiar laugh. The company's practically ours already. Mom was saying, Dad's getting sentimental in his old age. All it takes is one grandchild, too. I edged closer to the partially open door. But what about Lena? Sophia asked. She's his favorite. Everyone knows it. Lena is a child. Mom dismissed. She can't run a company. Besides, once the baby comes, Dad will forget all about her artistic phases and teenage dramatics. Eleanor, Dad's voice held a rare note of unease. Maybe we should slow down. The way we handled her birthday. The way we handled it was necessary. That girl needs to learn her place. And with the merger coming up. The merger. Sophia's voice sharpened. What merger? Richard's company, Mom said. Once we announce your pregnancy, the timing will be perfect. A merger between families, securing both companies' futures. Your father-in-law is already on board. My hand flew to my mouth. Richard was Sophia's husband, but he was also the CEO of their biggest competitor. A merger would mean, you're using my baby as a business deal. Sophia's voice cracked. I'm securing our family's future, Mom countered. Something your sister seems determined to undermine with her constant need for attention. Speaking of attention, Dad cut in. Dad's car just pulled up. I backed away from the door, but not quickly enough. It swung open, and I found myself face to face with Mom. Her perfectly applied makeup couldn't quite mask a flicker of panic. Lena? Her smile was brittle. How long have you been standing there? Long enough. The words came out firmer than I felt. So that's why you wanted the nursery done so quickly. It was never about Sophia's baby. It was about the merger. Sophia appeared behind Mom, one hand protectively over her stomach. Lena, it's not what you think. Really? Because it sounds like Mom's using your baby to manipulate Grandpa and secure a business deal. I met Mom's eyes. That's why you want me gone, isn't it? Because I might tell him the truth. You understand nothing about business. Mom snapped. About what it takes to protect this family's legacy. Protect it. I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. You mean control it, like you try to control everything else. The doorbell rang. Dad emerged from the study, adjusting his tie. That'll be your grandfather. Perfect timing, I said, watching Mom's face pale slightly. I'm sure he'd love to hear about the merger plans, about how his great-grandchild is just another business asset. You wouldn't dare, Mom hissed. I thought about my empty room upstairs, about years of missed art shows and conditional love, about Sophia's face when she realized her baby was just another piece in Mom's game. Try me, I said, turning toward the front door. Mom grabbed my arm. If you ruin this, you'll… What? Throw me out again? Too late. The doorbell rang again. Sophia's hands were trembling. Dad wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. And Mom, for the first time in my life, I saw real fear crack through her perfect facade. I pulled free of her grip and walked toward the front door, my heart pounding, but my step steady. Behind me, I heard Mom's heels clicking rapidly across the floor, rushing to beat me there. The game was about to change. I just hoped I was ready for what came next. The college brochures spread across Aunt Clara's kitchen table looked like escape routes. Art programs, photography majors, creative writing departments, everything Mom would despise, everything I might love. Berkeley has an excellent fine arts program, Clara said, sliding another pamphlet toward me. And it's about as far from here as you can get without leaving the country. My phone buzzed. Another message from Sophia. We need to talk. Alone. I'd been ignoring her texts since the dinner disaster 3 days ago, when Grandpa had stormed out after learning about the merger plans. Mom hadn't spoken to me since, but her silence spoke volumes. Lena. Clara tapped the brochures. You're miles away. Sorry, I just… My phone buzzed again. This time a message from Richard, Sophia's husband. Meeting at the office. Important information about your mother's plans. Come alone. I have to go, I said, standing abruptly. There's something I need to handle. Clara caught my arm. Whatever you're planning, remember what happened last time you tried to face them alone. This is different. I showed her Richard's message. He might have proof about the merger, something we can show Grandpa. Or it could be a trap. She frowned. At least let me drive you. They'll recognize your car. I'll take the bus. I grabbed my jacket. Besides, I'm tired of hiding. The corporate office loomed ahead 30 minutes later, all glass and steel and secrets. The security guard barely glanced at my student ID before waving me through. Richard's office was on the top floor, with a view of the city that probably cost more than my college fund, if I even had one anymore. The elevator doors opened to reveal not Richard, but Mom. I knew you'd come, she said, stepping inside before I could retreat. So predictable. The doors closed, and we began to ascend. Where's Richard? At home with your sister, who, by the way, is absolutely devastated by your betrayal. She jabbed the emergency stop button, and the elevator lurched to a halt. We need to talk about your future. My future. I laughed humorlessly. You mean the one you're trying to control, like everything else. I'm trying to protect this family's legacy, something you seem determined to destroy. She pulled out an envelope. Inside is an acceptance letter to a Swiss boarding school. Very exclusive, very far away. My throat tightened. You can't force me to go. No? Think about Sophia. The stress you're causing could harm her baby. Think about your father. His position in the company depends on this merger. She held out the envelope. One signature, and you get a fresh start. Isn't that what you want? The elevator felt smaller by the second. What I want is a mother who actually cares about me, not just her precious company. Don't be dramatic. This is a generous offer. Take it before I change my mind. I looked at the envelope, then at her perfectly composed face. You know what's funny? I used to think Sophia was the lucky one. Your perfect daughter, your pride and joy. But she's just as trapped as I am, isn't she? Something flickered in Mom's eyes. Fear, recognition. Before she could respond, my phone chimed. A message from Grandpa. Don't sign anything. On my way. Mom saw the text, her grip tightening on the envelope. Time to choose, Lena. Your family's stability or your selfish desires. What's it going to be? The elevator hummed around us, suspended between floors, as if my answer hung in the balance. I thought about the college brochures, about Sophia's shaking hands, about years of trying to earn love that should have been unconditional. I reached for the envelope. I took the envelope from Mom's hand and ripped it in half. The sound echoed in the elevator like a gunshot. That was a mistake, she said, her voice suddenly deadly quiet. The elevator lurched back to life, ascending to the top floor. When the doors opened, I found Dad and Richard waiting, along with 2 security guards. I tried to give you an easy way out, Mom said, stepping past me. Now, we do this the hard way. Richard held up a document. Sign this and we forget the scene you caused at dinner. Your grandfather never learns about your little outburst. What outburst? I looked from him to Mom. The truth. About how you're using Sophia's baby to manipulate him. The truth. Dad finally said something. Is that you've become unstable, dangerous to this family's reputation. Dangerous. I laughed. But it came out shaky. Because I won't play along with your games anymore. Mom nodded to the security guards. Show her. One guard produced a tablet, playing a video of me at the dinner. But something was wrong. The footage had been edited, making me look unhinged, aggressive. My words about the merger were cut out, replaced with what seemed like a jealous rant about Sophia's baby. Social media is so unpredictable, Richard said smoothly. Once something goes viral, you wouldn't, I whispered. But I knew they would. Sign the papers, Lena, Mom said. Agree to the boarding school, or this video goes public. Think about what that would do to your college applications, to your future. The elevator dinged again. Grandpa emerged, followed by Aunt Clara. Relief flooded through me until I saw their faces. I saw the video, Grandpa said, his voice heavy with disappointment. Lena, how could you? What? No, it's fake. I tried to explain. Clara cut in, her eyes pleading with me to understand. But the footage. Mom stepped forward, all concern and maternal worry. We've been trying to handle this privately, Dad. Lena's been struggling since we announced Sophia's pregnancy. The therapist suggested a change of environment might help. I'm not struggling. But my voice cracked, making me sound exactly like the unstable teenager they'd portrayed. They edited that video. They're trying to force me out because I know about the merger. Merger? Richard laughed. What merger, Mr. Whitman? I assure you, there's no merger. Just a troubled girl who needs help. I turned to Grandpa, desperate. You know me. You know I wouldn't. I know you've been under a lot of stress, he said gently. Maybe your mother's right. Some time away. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. Even Grandpa believed their lies. Even he was willing to send me away. The papers. Mom pressed, holding out a pen. Sign them, and we handle this as a family. Refuse and the video goes public. I looked at each face in turn. Dad avoiding my eyes as usual, Richard smug and certain of victory, Clara torn between loyalty and the evidence before her, Grandpa, his faith in me shattered by their careful manipulation, and Mom, finally showing real emotion. Triumph. My hand shook as I took the pen. The document was filled with legal terms, but one phrase stood out: voluntary commitment to residential treatment facility. Not boarding school. A psychiatric facility. Last chance, Lena, Mom said softly. Choose wisely. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Sophia. Don't sign anything. I have proof. Hold on. But as I looked up at the wall of faces against me, at the carefully constructed trap they'd laid, I realized something terrible. Sometimes, holding on hurts more than letting go. I pressed the pen to paper, my signature the only weapon I had left. The residential facility admission papers felt heavy in my hands. Just as I pressed the pen to paper, the office door burst open. Sophia stood there, breathless, one hand protectively over her stomach. "Stop," she commanded, her voice stronger than I'd ever heard it. "Nobody's signing anything." Mom stepped forward. "Sophia, you shouldn't be here in your condition." "My condition?" Sophia laughed, sharp and bitter. "You mean the condition you've been using to manipulate everyone." She pulled out her phone. "I recorded everything, Mother. Your conversation with Richard about the merger, the plans to use my baby to secure Grandpa's fortune, even your instructions to the video editor about doctoring Lena's footage." The room went deathly silent. Richard's smug expression crumbled. Dad's face was drained of color. "You're lying," Mom said, but her voice wavered. "Am I?" Sophia pressed play. Mom's voice filled the room, crystal clear. "Edit out anything about the merger, make her look unstable. Once she's committed, no one will believe her anyway." Grandpa moved faster than I'd ever seen him move. He snatched the commitment papers from my hands, tearing them to shreds. "Eleanor," he said, his voice shaking with rage, "what have you become?" "Dad, I can explain." "Explain what?" Clara cut in. "How you were willing to commit your own daughter to a psychiatric facility to protect your lies." Mom's composure finally shattered. "Everything I did was to protect this family's legacy. The merger would have secured all our futures. If Lena had just stayed quiet. If I had just disappeared." I finished for her. "Like I've been disappearing my whole life? Staying quiet at my birthdays, ignoring art shows, every time you chose the company over me. You ungrateful." She lunged forward, but Sophia stepped between us. "Enough, Mom. I won't let you do to my child what you did to Lena. This ends now." Richard moved toward the door. "This is ridiculous. I never agreed to." "Sit down, Richard," Grandpa commanded. "Nobody leaves until we settle this." He turned to Mom, his expression granite. "You're done here, Eleanor. As of this moment, you're removed from the company board. The merger is canceled." "You can't." "I can, and I will. The company goes to Clara and Lena. Sophia, too, if she wants it." He looked at each of us in turn. "It's time this family remembered what actually matters." Mom's face contorted. "George, say something." Dad stood up slowly. For the first time in my memory, he met Mom's gaze directly. I should have said something 16 years ago. He turned to me. "I'm sorry, Lena. I was a coward." "A coward?" Mom's laugh was hysterical. "You're all cowards, destroying everything I built." "You built nothing," Sophia interrupted. "You just controlled and manipulated until you got what you wanted. But you forgot something, Mom. You forgot that real family can't be bought or controlled." I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw past the perfect exterior to the scared little girl who'd once told me bedtime stories, who'd been just as trapped as I was. "The video," I said quietly. "Release it." Everyone stared at me. "Release the real video," I continued. "Let everyone see the truth. No more hiding." Mom's face went white. "You wouldn't dare." Sophia's finger hovered over her phone. "Try us." In that moment, looking at Mom's crumbling facade, I realized something important. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about finally being strong enough to walk away. I took Sophia's hand. Come on, sis. Let's go home. Not to the house with its empty rooms and hollow promises, but to somewhere new, somewhere real. 6 months later, I stood in front of my easel at Berkeley's Spring Art Showcase, watching people study my piece. The painting showed a nursery, but not the perfect one Mom had designed. This one was real, with shadows in the corners, imperfect walls, and a golden light that made even the flaws beautiful. It's haunting. A voice said behind me. I turned to find Sophia, her baby daughter asleep against her shoulder. Though the yellow ducks are a nice touch, I thought about painting them white. I admitted. But some things deserve to stay bright. She smiled, adjusting the sleeping baby. Mom asked about you yesterday. I think she finally looked at the therapy pamphlets Dad gave her. And nothing. But she's trying. Maybe that's something. Grandpa and Clara appeared, arguing good-naturedly about the company's new direction. The art therapy program for at-risk teens had been my idea, but Clara had made it happen. Even Dad had started volunteering, teaching photography on weekends. Your mother's letter came, Grandpa said quietly, holding out a worn envelope. The one she wrote before you were born. I thought you should have it. I took it, feeling its weight. Did you read it? No, but I remember when she wrote it. She was different then, softer, before the company became everything. I slipped the letter into my pocket, unopened. Maybe someday I'd want to read about the mom she used to be, but not today. Today was about who I was becoming. The scholarship committee is here, Clara whispered, nodding toward a group of professors. Ready to show them your portfolio. Actually, I said. I want to show them something else first. I led them to the back of the gallery, where a larger canvas waited under a sheet. This painting had taken months, countless drafts, and more courage than I knew I had. I pulled off the sheet. The painting showed our family, but not in the perfect, posed way of old portraits. Instead, it captured real moments. Sophia reading stories to her daughter, Clara and Grandpa laughing over coffee, Dad behind his camera. Even Mom was there, distant but present, a shadow beginning to take new shape. And in the center, a teenage girl at an easel, finally visible, finally whole. Oh, sweetheart, Clara breathed. It's called Family Portrait Unfinished, I explained, because we're all still working on it, aren't we? Sophia squeezed my hand. Always. Later, after the scholarship committee had left with an offer I couldn't refuse and the gallery had emptied, I found myself alone with my paintings. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. The new art therapy program. It's good work. You're good at this. Not an apology, not yet, but maybe, like my painting, we were all unfinished works in progress. I thought about the unopened letter in my pocket, about the mother she'd been and the one she'd become, about how sometimes the hardest part of growing up is realizing your parents are growing too, in their own imperfect ways. Another text came through, this one from Dad. Proud of you, kiddo. Always have been. I looked at my family portrait one last time before covering it for the night. The shadows were there, but so was the light, making even the darkest corners glow with possibility, just like the nursery painting. It wasn't perfect, but maybe perfect wasn't the point. Maybe the point was learning to see beauty in the broken places, strength in the struggles, and hope in the spaces we leave blank, waiting to be filled with whatever comes next. I turned off the gallery lights and stepped into the evening, ready for my next canvas.